Hello, everyone. Welcome back. We're so happy you're here with us today. If this is your first time listening, welcome. And if you've been with us before, welcome back. Today, we're going to do something that many English learners dream about. We're going to train your ears to understand real English, not textbook English, not perfect classroom English, but the kind of English people actually speak every day. Have you ever watched an English movie and thought, why are they speaking so fast? Or maybe you know many English words. You understand English when you read. But when people start talking, everything suddenly becomes one long sound. If that has happened to you, don't worry. You're not alone. Thousands of English learners feel exactly the same. And today, we're going to change that. Not in 5 minutes, not with magic, but with simple listening practice that really works. So, find a comfortable place, take a deep breath. Maybe you have a cup of coffee or tea, or maybe you're listening while walking, driving, or cooking. Wherever you are, we're happy you're spending this time with us because every minute you spend listening to English helps your brain become stronger, little by little, day by day. And one day, you'll suddenly notice something amazing. You'll watch a movie, listen to a podcast, or talk with someone, and you'll think, wait, I understood that. That moment is wonderful. And it starts with practice, real practice, not memorizing hundreds of grammar rules, not translating every sentence, but listening again and again. Your ears, just like your muscles, become stronger with training. So today we're going to train together. And don't worry if you don't understand every single word. You don't have to. Even native speakers sometimes miss words in noisy places. The goal isn't perfection. The goal is improvement. Just understand a little more today than you understood yesterday. That's enough. That's real progress.
I love that, Liam. Sometimes learners think if I don't understand everything, I'm failing. But that's simply not true. When I was learning another language, I didn't understand everything either. Sometimes I understood only half of the conversation, sometimes even less. But I kept listening, and something interesting happened. Without realizing it, my brain slowly started recognizing more words. At first, everything sounded mixed together. Then I started hearing small phrases. After that, I could understand complete sentences. It didn't happen overnight. It happened because I listened consistently, and that's exactly what we're going to help you do today. This isn't a test. You don't need to be nervous. This is simply practice. Relaxed, friendly, and natural practice. As we talk, just focus on listening. Don't stop every few seconds. Don't worry about translating into your own language. Instead, try to imagine the meaning. Listen to the sound. Notice the rhythm. Notice how English flows. Because real English has music. Some words are louder, some are softer. Some words connect together. And the more you hear that rhythm, the easier English becomes. So today, just enjoy the conversation. Your ears are learning even when you don't notice it.
Exactly. And here's something important. Many learners believe they have a vocabulary problem, but often they actually have a listening problem. Imagine you know the word comfortable. When you read it, you understand it immediately. But then someone says, I'm comfortable, very naturally, very quickly. And suddenly you don't recognize the word. Not because you don't know it, but because you've never trained your ears to hear it in real conversation. That's why listening practice is so powerful. It connects the English you already know with the English you actually hear. And after enough practice, your brain starts recognizing words automatically. No translating, no guessing, just understanding. That's our goal. Today, we'll take one small step toward that goal. And by the end of this lesson, we hope you'll feel more confident, more relaxed, and more excited about listening to English. Because learning English shouldn't feel stressful. It should feel enjoyable. And we're going to enjoy this journey together.
So, are you ready? Wonderful. Let's begin by talking about one simple question. Why does real English sound so different from the English we learn in books? That's exactly what we're going to explore next.
Let's start with something very simple. Imagine this. You have studied English for 3 years, maybe even 5 years. You know hundreds of words. You know grammar. You can read short stories. You can answer exercises. Then one day, you meet a native English speaker. They smile, say something, and suddenly your mind goes completely blank. You think, wait, I know English, so why didn't I understand that? Does that sound familiar? If it does, don't worry. There is a very good reason. The English we learn in books and the English people speak every day are often very different. Not because the words are different, but because the way people speak is different. Real English is faster, more connected, more relaxed. People don't stop after every word. They don't pronounce every sound perfectly. Instead, their words flow together like a river. And if your ears have only practiced slow English, that fast river can sound impossible to understand. But here's the good news. Your ears can learn. Just like your eyes learned to recognize English words, your ears can also learn to recognize English sounds. It simply takes the right kind of practice.
That's a great way to explain it. Let me give everyone a small example. Imagine someone says, "What are you doing?" When you first learned English, your teacher probably pronounced every word clearly. What? Are? You? Doing? Everything sounded separate, easy to understand. But now, imagine two friends talking. One friend says, "What are you doing?" No, they usually say something much faster. Something like, "What you doing?" Now, imagine hearing that for the first time. You might think, what was that? It doesn't sound like the sentence you learned in school, but it is exactly the same sentence. The words haven't changed, only the pronunciation has changed. And that's what surprises many learners. They think, I don't know these words. Actually, they do know the words. Their ears just haven't learned the natural sound yet, and that's perfectly normal.
Exactly. Here's another example. Imagine someone asks you, "Do you want some coffee?" In careful English, every word is clear. Do, you, want, some, coffee. But in real life, it may sound much more relaxed. Something like, "Do you want some coffee?" Very quick, very smooth. Sometimes learners try to separate every word, but real conversations don't work that way. Native speakers connect words naturally. It's like dancing. One step flows into the next. You don't stop after every movement. English works the same way. And once you begin noticing these patterns, something wonderful happens. Your brain starts expecting them. The next time you hear them, they no longer sound strange. Instead, they sound familiar. That's one of the biggest secrets to improving listening. It's not about hearing better. It's about recognizing patterns. And your brain is excellent at finding patterns. The more examples you hear, the faster your brain learns.
Can I share something personal? When I first started improving my listening, I made one big mistake. Every time I heard a word I didn't know, I stopped. I paused the video. I opened a dictionary. I translated everything. Then I started the video again. 5 minutes later, I stopped again, and again, and again. After 20 minutes, I had only watched 3 minutes of the video. I was learning vocabulary, but I wasn't training my listening. Later, I changed my method. First, I listened all the way through, Even if I understood only 60%, I focused on the main idea. Then I listened again. The second time, I understood much more. The third time, even more. That's when I realized something important. Listening isn't only about knowing words, it's about giving your brain another chance to hear them. Sometimes your brain simply needs one more listen, or maybe two, and that's completely okay.
I completely agree. That's why today I want you to relax. Don't chase every single word. Instead, listen for the meaning. Ask yourself simple questions. Who is speaking? What are they talking about? Are they happy? Excited? Confused? Even if you miss a few words, you can often understand the whole conversation. And that's exactly how native speakers listen too. Nobody hears every single word all the time. We listen for meaning, for ideas, for emotions, not individual vocabulary. When you change your listening this way, English becomes much less stressful and much more enjoyable. Because suddenly, you're no longer trying to catch every leaf. You're enjoying the whole tree.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. So now that we understand why real English sounds different, let's discover the listening habits that help learners improve much faster than they expect. Now that we know why listening feels difficult, let's talk about something even more important. How do people who become good listeners actually practice? Many learners believe they need expensive courses, special apps, or a native English-speaking friend. Those things can help, but they're not the most important. The most important thing is how you listen. Let me explain. Imagine you're watching a football game. One person watches carefully. They notice every pass, every movement, every strategy. Another person watches while looking at their phone. Every few minutes, they look up. Who understands the game better? Of course, the person who is paying attention. Listening to English works exactly the same way. If English is only background noise, your brain doesn't learn very much. But when you truly pay attention, your brain starts building new connections. That's called active listening. And active listening is one of the fastest ways to improve. I love that idea. Active listening sounds difficult, but it's actually very simple. It means when you listen, you really listen. Not while scrolling through social media, not while answering messages, not while thinking about tomorrow, just listening. Even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes, those 15 focused minutes are often more valuable than 1 hour of distracted listening. Sometimes learners tell me, Nora, I listen to English every day, but I'm not improving. Then I ask them, what do you do while you're listening? And they smile. They say, I usually clean the house, cook dinner, or check my phone. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing those things. Passive listening can still be useful. But if you want faster improvement, you also need focused listening. Time when English has your full attention. That's when real progress begins. I love that idea. Active listening sounds difficult, but it's actually very simple. It means when you listen, you really listen. Not while scrolling through social media, not while answering messages, not while thinking about tomorrow, just listening. Even if it's only for 10 or 15 minutes. Those 15 focused minutes are often more valuable than 1 hour of distracted listening. Sometimes learners tell me, Liam, I listen to English every day, but I'm not improving. Then I ask them, what do you do while you're listening? And they smile. They say, I usually clean the house, cook dinner, or check my phone. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing those things. Passive listening can still be useful. But if you want faster improvement, you also need focused listening. Time when English has your full attention. That's when real progress begins. Can I tell you a secret? Sometimes I still listen to the same podcast several times, not because I don't understand it, but because every time I notice something different. Maybe I hear a beautiful expression. Maybe I notice natural pronunciation. Maybe I hear a sentence that sounds very useful. Repetition isn't only for beginners. Professional musicians practice the same songs. Professional athletes practice the same movements. Language learners should do the same. Practice doesn't mean doing something new every day. Practice means doing the right things again and again. And little by little, they become natural. One day, without thinking, you'll hear a phrase and understand it immediately. That's a wonderful feeling.
There's another habit that many successful learners use. Instead of asking, what does every word mean? They ask, what's the speaker trying to say? That's a completely different question. Let's imagine someone says, it's freezing outside. Do they mean everything is becoming ice? Probably not. They simply mean it's very cold. If you focus only on individual words, you might become confused. But if you focus on the message, the meaning becomes much clearer. Real communication is about ideas, not perfect translations. So today, every time you listen, challenge yourself. Don't chase every word, chase the meaning. Your brain will thank you for it.
We've talked about listening habits and how to practice more effectively. Now it's time to look at something you'll hear every single day in real conversations, the way English words naturally connect together. And once you begin noticing those connections, real English will suddenly sound much clearer.
Now, let's explore something that changes everything. Connected speech. It sounds like a complicated term, but don't worry, the idea is actually very simple. Connected speech means English words don't like to stay alone. They like to hold hands. They like to join together. And that's exactly how people speak in real life. Imagine you're talking to a close friend. Are you going to pronounce every single word perfectly? Probably not. You'll speak naturally, smoothly, comfortably. That's what connected speech is. It's natural English, not lazy English, not incorrect English, just natural. And the more you hear it, the more comfortable it becomes.
I think this surprises many learners because in school we usually learn one word at a time. Hello, how, are, you. Each word is separate, very clear, very slow. But real conversations don't sound like that. People don't stop after every word, they connect them. And suddenly the sentence sounds completely different. Not because the words changed, but because the rhythm changed. That's why listening feels difficult at first. Your brain is expecting textbook English, but your ears are hearing real English. The good news is, your brain is very flexible. It can learn this new rhythm. You simply need enough examples.
Let's imagine two friends meeting after work. One friend says, "Are you ready?" Now, listen to how people often say it naturally. You ready? Can you hear the difference? The meaning stays exactly the same, but the sound becomes shorter, faster, more relaxed. Here's another example. What are you doing? Many people don't pronounce every word clearly. Instead, it becomes, what you doing? Again, same meaning, different sound. This is why learners sometimes think, I've never heard that word before. Actually, you have. You've simply heard it in its natural form, and that's completely normal.
Here's something interesting. When children learn their first language, they don't learn grammar first. They don't memorize vocabulary lists. They hear patterns again and again and again. Eventually, their brains recognize those patterns automatically. As English learners, we can do the same thing. The more often you hear natural English, the more familiar it becomes. At first, you notice one expression. Later, you recognize another. Soon, your brain starts predicting what comes next, and that's when listening becomes much easier. It's almost like watching your favorite movie. The first time, everything is new. The second time, you know the characters. The third time, you even remember the next sentence before it's spoken. Listening practice creates that same feeling.
There's another reason connected speech matters. It helps you speak more naturally too. Many learners focus only on grammar. They create perfect sentences, but when they speak, every word is separated, very slowly. Native speakers understand them, but the conversation doesn't flow naturally. After listening to enough real English, your speaking begins to change automatically. You start copying the rhythm, the pauses, the melody, without even trying. That's why listening is one of the best speaking exercises. The two skills grow together. The better you listen, the more natural your speaking becomes.
And remember, you don't need to copy everything immediately. Today, just notice it. Tomorrow, notice it again. Next week, you'll begin recognizing it without thinking. Language learning isn't a race, it's a journey. Every conversation you hear, every podcast you finish, every English video you enjoy is another step forward. So don't worry if connected speech still feels new. Soon, it will start feeling familiar. And in the next conversation, we're going to discover another reason English sometimes sounds confusing, even when the words themselves are simple.
Now let's talk about something that surprises many English learners. Sometimes, the problem isn't the words, it's the sounds. English has many sounds that may not exist in your first language. Because of that, your brain doesn't always recognize them immediately. Think about music. If you've never heard a certain instrument before, it may sound strange at first, but after hearing it many times, you immediately recognize it. English sounds work in exactly the same way. Your ears need experience, not perfection, just experience. The more English you hear, the faster your brain begins to recognize familiar sounds. And one day, without even thinking, you'll understand sentences that once seemed impossible.
I remember something funny. When I first started listening to fast English, I thought native speakers were skipping words. I'd think, did they forget to say something? But they weren't skipping words, they were simply speaking naturally. Their pronunciation was smooth, their rhythm was relaxed, and my ears simply weren't used to it yet. That's why patience is so important. Many learners become frustrated after only a few days. They say, my listening isn't improving. But language learning doesn't work like that. Your brain needs time. Imagine planting a tree. You don't expect it to become tall tomorrow. You water it, you take care of it. Little by little, it grows. Your listening grows exactly the same way. Every English conversation you hear is another drop of water.
That's a wonderful comparison. And here's another important idea. Don't be afraid of hearing words you don't know. Many learners stop listening the moment they hear unfamiliar vocabulary. But think about real conversations in your own language. Do you know every single word people say? Probably not. Sometimes you hear a new word, sometimes you ignore it and continue listening because you understand the overall meaning. You can do exactly the same thing in English. Let's imagine someone says, "Yesterday, I went to a restaurant. The atmosphere was wonderful, the food was delicious." Maybe you don't know the word atmosphere. Can you still understand the conversation? Of course. Someone went to a restaurant, they enjoyed it, the food was delicious. You still understood the main idea. That's successful listening. You don't need every word. You need the message.
Exactly. And something interesting happens over time. Words you've heard many times suddenly become familiar. Maybe today you hear a new word. Tomorrow you hear it in another podcast. A week later, you hear it in a movie. Then one day, someone uses that word in conversation, and your brain immediately recognizes it. That's how vocabulary grows naturally, not only by memorizing lists, but by meeting words again and again, in different situations, different voices, different conversations. That's why listening is such a powerful teacher. It keeps introducing vocabulary naturally, again and again, until those words become part of your English.
There's something else I'd like you to remember. Please don't compare yourself with other learners. Some people improve quickly, others improve slowly. Both are perfectly normal. Everyone has a different journey. Maybe someone has listened to English for 5 years. Maybe someone else has only started this month. Your only job is to become a little better than yesterday. Nothing more, nothing less. Small improvements create big results. Imagine improving just 1% every day. After a month, your listening would already feel very different. Not because of one amazing lesson, but because of many small lessons. That's the secret. Consistency beats intensity. Listening for 15 minutes every day is far more powerful than studying for 3 hours only once a week.
I couldn't agree more. And now that we've talked about sounds, patience, and building good listening habits, let's move into something even more practical. In the next conversation, we're going to explore simple techniques you can start using today to make every minute of English listening more effective and more enjoyable.
Now that we've talked about building strong listening habits, let's look at something you can start doing today. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Here's a simple question. When was the last time you listened to the same English audio more than once? Many learners smile when I ask that, because the answer is usually almost never. We often believe we must always find something new, a new podcast, a new video, a new lesson. But your brain learns differently. Your brain loves familiar material. Every time you hear the same conversation, it becomes easier. The first time, you notice the topic. The second time, you recognize more vocabulary. The third time, you hear pronunciation you missed before. The fourth time, you begin understanding almost everything. That isn't because the audio changed, it's because your ears became stronger.
I experienced exactly that. There was one English podcast I loved. The first time I listened, I understood maybe 60%. I felt a little disappointed. But instead of finding another podcast, I listened again the next day. Suddenly, I understood much more. Then I listened a third time. It felt like someone had slowed the speakers down. Of course, they weren't speaking more slowly. My ears had simply improved. That experience taught me something very important. Improvement isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it happens quietly, without you even noticing, until one day you suddenly realize, wow, I understand much more than I did before. Those are wonderful moments, and every learner experiences them if they keep practicing.
Here's another exercise I recommend. After listening to a short conversation, stop the audio. Then ask yourself one simple question. What was this conversation about? Don't worry about using perfect English. Just explain the main idea. Maybe you say they were talking about travel, or they were planning a weekend. That's enough. This exercise teaches your brain to focus on meaning, not individual words. Another helpful question is, how did the speakers feel? Were they excited, relaxed, nervous, happy? Listening isn't only about vocabulary, it's also about emotions. The way people speak often tells you how they feel, and understanding feelings is a very important communication skill.
That's true. Sometimes you can understand someone's emotions before you understand every word. Think about your favorite movie. You know when a character is excited. You know when someone is worried. You know when someone is laughing, even if they don't say it directly. English conversations work the same way. Listen to the voice. Listen to the energy. Notice when someone speaks softly. Notice when they speak quickly. Notice when they pause. Those small details help you understand much more than vocabulary alone. Communication is much bigger than words. It's tone, rhythm, emotion, and confidence. When you begin noticing those things, real English becomes much easier to follow.
There's one more habit I'd like you to try. Keep a small listening notebook. Nothing complicated. After every podcast or video, write down 3 things. First, one new word you heard. Second, one useful expression. And third, one interesting idea from the conversation. That's all. 3 simple notes. You don't need to write every sentence. You don't need 10 pages. Just 3 small observations. Over time, that notebook becomes something amazing. You'll look back after a few months and realize how much English you've collected, not from memorizing lists, but from real conversations, real listening, real progress.
I love that idea because learning English isn't about being perfect. It's about becoming a little more confident every single day. One new phrase, one new idea, one more conversation you understand. Those small victories matter. Celebrate them, be proud of them, because they're taking you closer to your goal. And speaking of real conversations, it's time to explore some everyday situations you'll hear again and again and learn how to understand them naturally.
Let's imagine something very common. You're sitting in a coffee shop. People around you are talking. You don't know them, you're not part of their conversation, but you can hear little pieces of English. Maybe someone says, "I'll see you tomorrow." Another person says, "That sounds like a great idea." Someone laughs, someone orders another coffee. This is real English, short, natural, unplanned. And that's exactly the kind of English your ears should practice. Many learners spend years studying long grammar lessons, but almost no time listening to everyday conversations. Then they travel or meet English speakers, and they're surprised. They think, "Nobody speaks like my textbook." And they're right. Real conversations are much more relaxed. People interrupt each other. They laugh, they change topics. They don't always speak in perfect sentences. That's normal. And that's what makes English feel alive.
I completely agree. Let's imagine another situation. You're shopping for groceries. The cashier smiles and says, "How's your day going?" It's such a simple question, but many learners panic. They think, should I tell my whole life story? Of course not. Usually, the cashier is simply being friendly. A short answer is enough. You might say, "It's going well, thank you." Or, "Pretty good, how about yours?" That's how many everyday conversations begin. They're short, friendly, and relaxed. Sometimes learners prepare very long answers, but in real life, simple answers often sound the most natural. Communication doesn't always need complicated vocabulary. Simple English, spoken confidently, is often the best English.
That's a wonderful point. Sometimes we think if I don't use difficult words, my English isn't good. But that's not true. Imagine two people. One person knows many advanced words but speaks with hesitation. The other person uses simple vocabulary but speaks clearly and confidently. Who is easier to understand? Usually the second person, because communication isn't about impressing people. It's about sharing ideas. And listening works the same way. Don't expect every conversation to contain difficult vocabulary. Most daily conversations use common words, words you've probably already learned. The challenge isn't learning thousands of new words. The challenge is recognizing familiar words when people speak naturally. That's why today's listening practice matters so much.
Can I give everyone a small listening challenge? The next time you watch an English movie, don't focus only on the main characters. Listen to the background conversations too. Maybe someone is ordering food. Maybe two friends are making plans. Maybe someone is asking for directions. Those small conversations are full of useful English. You'll hear greetings, questions, everyday expressions, and natural pronunciation. It's like collecting little pieces of real English. At first, you may understand only a few words. That's okay. The next movie, you'll understand more. Your ears become stronger every single time.
Here's another tip. Choose one English voice you enjoy listening to. Maybe it's a podcast host, a teacher, an audiobook narrator. Listen to that same voice regularly. Why? Because your brain becomes familiar with the speaker's pronunciation, their rhythm, their speaking style. After a while, their English feels easier to understand. Then, when your confidence grows, start listening to different voices, different ages, different accents, different speeding speeds. Little by little, your ears become flexible. Soon, it won't matter who's speaking. Your brain will adopt much more quickly. And that's a huge step toward understanding real English naturally.
Exactly. Remember, confidence doesn't appear overnight. It grows with experience. Every conversation you listen to, every podcast you finish, every English video you enjoy is helping your brain become a better listener. Even on days when you feel like you're not improving, you probably are. Learning often happens quietly. One day, without expecting it, you'll understand a conversation that once felt impossible, and that moment will remind you that every minute of practice was worth it. Now, let's explore another important skill: how to stay calm and confident even when you don't understand every word someone says.
Let's be honest for a moment. Have you ever been listening to someone in English and suddenly you missed one word? Then, while you were thinking about that one word, the speaker continued talking. Another sentence passed, then another. And before you knew it, you were completely lost. If you've experienced that, you're definitely not alone. In fact, it's one of the most common listening mistakes. Many learners believe they must understand every single word, so when they miss one, they stop listening. But real conversations don't wait. People keep talking. That's why successful listeners do something different. They keep moving forward, even if they miss one word, or two, or even three, because they know something very important. One unknown word usually doesn't change the whole meaning. The conversation is still there. The story is still there. The message is still there. So don't let one small word stop you from understanding everything else.
That's such an important lesson. Imagine you're reading a book. You see one unfamiliar word. Would you close the book immediately? Probably not. You'd keep reading, and often the next sentence helps you understand the meaning. Listening works the same way. The words around the unknown word give you clues. Maybe the speaker is smiling. Maybe they're laughing. Maybe they're talking about food, or travel, or work. All those clues help your brain understand the conversation. This skill is called listening for context, and it's one of the strongest skills you can develop. Instead of asking, "What does this one word mean?" ask yourself, "What are they talking about?" That simple question changes everything.
Exactly. Let's imagine someone says, "Yesterday we missed the train, so we had to wait another hour." Now imagine you don't know the word missed. Can you still understand the situation? Probably yes. You hear train. You hear wait another hour. Your brain starts building the story. Something happened with the train. Now they're waiting. Even without understanding every word, you understand the situation. That's real listening. Real listeners collect clues, just like detectives. They don't panic because one clue is missing. They look at the whole picture. And that's exactly what you should do too.
Here's another habit that can help. Be curious. Instead of feeling frustrated, become interested. Imagine you hear a phrase you've never heard before. Don't think, "My English is terrible." Think, "That's interesting. I learned something new today." That small change in attitude makes learning much more enjoyable, because language learning never really ends. Even native speakers learn new words, new expressions, new slang, new ways of saying things. Learning is a lifelong journey, so don't expect yourself to know everything. Nobody does. Enjoy discovering something new every day.
I really like that mindset. Curiosity makes learning easier. Fear makes learning harder. So whenever you listen to English, replace pressure with curiosity. Replace worry with practice. And replace perfection with progress, because progress is what truly matters. Think back to when you first started learning English. You probably knew only a few words. Now, look how far you've come. You understand conversations, podcasts, videos, maybe even books. That's real progress. Sometimes we forget to celebrate how much we've already learned. So today, take a moment and be proud of yourself. Every minute you've spent practicing has brought you here.
Absolutely. And here's something I'd like everyone listening to remember. Confidence doesn't come before practice. Confidence comes because of practice. The more conversations you hear, the more familiar English becomes. The more familiar it becomes, the more confident you feel. It's a beautiful cycle. Practice creates confidence. Confidence encourages more practice. And before you realize it, understanding English feels much more natural than it once did. Now, let's finish today's lesson with one final conversation and some simple habits that will help you continue improving long after this episode ends.
Now, let's talk about something very practical. How can you create a daily listening routine? Because the truth is, you don't need many hours. You don't need to study all day. You just need a simple routine that you can follow consistently. Many learners start with great motivation. They say, "From tomorrow, I will study English for 3 hours every day." That sounds exciting, but after a few days, life becomes busy, they become tired, and the plan disappears. A better approach is to start small, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, but do it every day. Small actions repeated over time create big results.
I completely agree. A simple listening routine could look like this. First, choose something interesting. This is very important. If you don't enjoy the content, it will feel like a difficult task. Choose topics you love. Maybe travel, food, science, stories, movies, personal development, anything that keeps your attention. Because when you enjoy something, you naturally want to listen more. Second, listen actively. Don't just play the audio and forget about it. Pay attention to the speaker. Notice the pronunciation. Notice useful phrases. Notice how words connect. You don't need to analyze every second. Just stay present.
The third step is repetition. Remember what we talked about earlier. Don't be afraid to listen again. A good routine might be first, listening, just understand the main idea. Second, listening, notice new words and phrases. Third, listening, repeat some sentences aloud. This final step is very powerful because when you repeat what you hear, your ears and your mouth work together. Your brain connects the sound with your own speaking. This technique is called shadowing. You listen and repeat almost like an echo. It helps with pronunciation, rhythm, and confidence.
Let's try a small example. Imagine you hear this sentence. I've been trying to improve my English listening skills. The first time, just listen. Don't worry. The second time, notice the words. I've been trying improve my English listening skills. The third time, repeat it. I've been trying to improve my English listening skills. Again, I've been trying to improve my English listening skills. At first, it may feel strange, maybe even uncomfortable, but that's okay. Your brain is creating a new habit, and every repetition makes it easier.
Another important part of listening practice is choosing the right difficulty. Some learners choose content that is too easy. They understand everything. That's comfortable, but they don't grow much. Others choose content that is extremely difficult. They understand almost nothing. That can become frustrating. The best choice is somewhere in the middle. Content where you understand the main idea but still discover something new. Maybe you understand 70 or 80%. That's a great level. You're comfortable, but your brain is still learning.
And please remember, don't only listen to English when you feel motivated. Create a habit. Motivation comes and goes. Some days you will feel excited. Some days you won't, but habits keep you moving forward. Maybe you listen while drinking your morning coffee, maybe during your walk, maybe before sleeping. Connect English with something you already do every day. Then practice becomes natural. It becomes part of your lifestyle, not just another task on your list.
That's a great point. And now let's do a small reflection. Think about your own English journey. Ask yourself, what is my biggest listening challenge? Is it fast speakers, different accents, connected speech, not knowing enough vocabulary? Take a moment and think about it. Because when you know your challenge, you can choose the right practice. Improvement begins with understanding yourself.
Exactly. And remember, you are not learning English to become someone else. You are learning English to communicate, to understand people, to share your ideas, to enjoy movies, books, podcasts, and conversations. English is a tool, a beautiful tool, and every time you listen, you are becoming more comfortable using it. In our final section, we're going to review everything we learned today and create a simple listening challenge you can start immediately.
Welcome back. We've reached the final part of our listening journey today. And before we finish, I want you to take a moment and think about something. 40 minutes ago, maybe English listening felt difficult. Maybe fast English felt confusing. Maybe you felt that native speakers were speaking too quickly. But now, you have learned something important. Listening is not a talent that only some people have. It is a skill, and skills can be trained. Your ears can become stronger, your brain can become faster, and your confidence can grow. All it takes is practice. Small practice. Regular practice.
Let's quickly remember the important lessons from today. First, we learned that real English sounds different from textbook English. People connect words. They speak naturally. They use rhythm and expressions that may sound unfamiliar at first. But with enough exposure, your ears learn those patterns. Second, we learned the importance of active listening. Listening is not just hearing sounds, it's paying attention, understanding the message, noticing the speaker's emotions, and focusing on the meaning. Third, we learned that repetition is powerful. Listening to the same audio many times is not a waste of time. Every repetition helps your brain discover something new.
We also talked about an important idea. Don't try to understand every single word. This is one of the biggest mistakes learners make. Remember, communication is about meaning. If you miss one word, keep listening. Use the information around it. Use the situation. Use the speaker's tone. Your brain is much smarter than you think. It can connect information together. And the more you practice, the better it becomes.
Now, we want to give you a simple challenge, a 7-day listening challenge. For the next 7 days, spend just 15 minutes listening to English. That's all, 15 minutes. Day 1, choose a short English video or podcast. Just listen and understand the main idea. Day 2, listen again. Notice new words and expressions. Day 3, repeat some sentences aloud. Practice the rhythm. Day 4, listen without subtitles. Day 5, write down a few useful phrases. Day 6, try listening to a different speaker, maybe a different accent. And day 7, look back and notice your progress. You will be surprised.
I love this challenge because it's simple. Many people wait for the perfect moment to improve their English. They think, I'll start when I have more time. But the perfect moment rarely comes. The best time to start is with the time you have today. 10 minutes, 15 minutes, even 5 focused minutes is better than nothing. Progress is created by small steps, not by waiting.
And remember something else. Be kind to yourself. Some days will feel easy. Some days will feel difficult. Some days you will understand a lot. Other days you may feel like you understand nothing. That is normal.
Learning is not a straight line. It goes up and down. But if you continue, you will move forward. Every listener you hear, every sentence you understand, every new phrase you learn is proof that you are improving.
So today, we hope you don't just finish this lesson. We hope you continue the journey. Keep listening, keep practicing, keep challenging your ears. Because one day, you will hear English that once sounded impossible, and it will feel normal. You will understand conversations. You will enjoy movies. You will follow podcasts. You will feel more confident communicating. That day is coming. Just keep going.
And if this lesson helped you, we would love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments, what is the hardest part of English listening for you? Is it fast speaking, accents, pronunciation, or connected speech? And tell us one thing you will do this week to improve your listening. Maybe you will listen for 15 minutes every day. Maybe you will practice shadowing. Maybe you will watch English videos without subtitles. Share your goal with us, because when you write your goal, you make it more real.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for practicing. And most importantly, thank you for believing that you can improve. Remember, your ears are learning. Your brain is adapting. Your English is growing. One conversation at a time.
We hope you enjoyed today's Real English listening practice. Keep listening, keep learning, and keep building your confidence. We will see you in the next English practice lesson. Take care, everyone.